From Courtney Love's $450,000 country retreat she bought after Kurt Cobain's death, to Michael Jackson's epic $30 million Neverland Ranch, these are the abandoned celebrity homes that can't sell for any price.
First up, Courtney Love bought a massive country retreat after Kurt Cobain died. The world was in shock after the legendary rocker's sudden demise, and we've all heard the conspiracy theories pointing the finger at Love. In 1995, just a year after her husband passed away, Courtney paid nearly $450,000 for a sprawling estate in Olympia, Washington. Something tells me she wanted to escape the hustle and bustle of Seattle, or maybe she needed a safe space from the paparazzi that hounded her every step. And the idyllic scenery of Olympia seemed like just what she needed. However, the grunge icon hardly spent any time in the 6.78-acre estate, and over the years, it fell into a serious state of disrepair. Like, if you take a look at pictures of the place, you wouldn't be able to tell that it belonged to one of the biggest celebrities of the 90s. The walls were covered in graffiti, debris was just lying around on the floor, and the guest house was barely standing after a fire broke out. Love finally decided to put the house up for sale in August 3, 2018, but its atrocious condition made it impossible to turn a profit. She was actually ready to take a pretty hefty loss for the property because when her realtor started reaching out to buyers, the sale price was a ridiculously low $319,000. That's about $130,000 less than what she paid for it, and I'm not even accounting for inflation here. The listing mentioned that the house was a real fixer-upper, and while rumor has it that she received a few offers for the place, I haven't heard anything about it being sold. You'd think that a house owned by celebrities would get snapped up instantly, but even Bruce Lee's mansion ended up desolate and abandoned. He was one of the first people to gain fame as a martial artist, mixing his acting skills to forge a memorable career for himself. All that success earned him a ton of wealth. And while he bought many homes throughout his life, his Hong Kong mansion was the most special of all. You see, even though Bruce Lee was the picture of health, he died pretty suddenly in 1973 when he was just 32 years old. He spent his last few days at this estate, and once he passed, it was up for grabs. A prominent businessman named Yu Pingnian got his hands on it, eventually turning it into a hotel by the 2000s, despite millions of Bruce's fans begging him to turn it into a museum. He made plans to open up a tourist center in the mansion in 2009, but he couldn't get it off the ground before his death in 2015, and 4 years later, the last remnant of Bruce Lee's legacy was demolished. If you ask me, the home should have become a shrine to Bruce Lee's career, so it's pretty tragic that things turned out this way. Of course, not every abandoned celebrity mansion has such a sad backstory. Case in point, Prince Andrew's 12-bedroom estate, Sunninghill Park. Just for starters, the British royal didn't even buy the property himself. Instead, his mommy, the late Queen Elizabeth, gifted the 665-acre plot to him in 1986, and construction commenced a year later. Not everyone knows this, but Prince Andrew's rumored to be Queen Elizabeth's favorite child, despite all the controversy surrounding his association with Jeffrey Epstein, which explains why she'd give him such a ridiculous gift. By the time the home was finished, it contained 12 bedrooms, an enormous swimming pool, as well as a stable for his horses, but it became notorious for its tacky design. Andrew's own father, Prince Philip, said it looked like a tart's bedroom, and some journalists compared it to a glorified Tesco supermarket. Despite that, Andrew and his wife, Sarah Ferguson, lived there for years, even after their notorious split in 1996. However, when his grandmother died in 2002, he decided to move into her old residence. The thing is, he had to remortgage Sunninghill Park to renovate the Royal Lodge. I guess even princes have to deal with banks to finance their lifestyles. Anyway, the remortgaging took a toll on his finances, and he needed to sell it fast to get some money coming in. A Kazakh billionaire named Timur Kulibayev took it off his hands, but he wasn't very interested in living there because by 2009, the property was in a state of disarray, and it was eventually demolished by 2016. This is just one example of celebrities spending millions on an estate that was doomed from the start. Steve Jobs literally hated his California mansion. He bought it back in 1984, but the real estate's history stretched all the way to 1925. Copper magnate Daniel Cowan Jackling hired George Washington Smith to design it in the Spanish Revival style, and the property was named Jackling House after him. The co-founder of Apple loved the house when he first moved in, but he developed a profound dislike of the estate before moving out in '94. By 2000, Jobs made it his life's mission to have the house demolished, and it lay vacant for years as he petitioned to get the job done. It took him over a decade to tear the house down, but in an ironic twist, Jobs died shortly after its demolition. The 35-room mansion had been uninhabited for 11 years by then. It had become a shadow of its former self, with peeling paint, crumbling plaster, and creeping vines painting a picture of neglect. And to this day, no one knows why the tech mogul hated it so much. His home bears some striking parallels to Kanye West's $2 million mansion, mostly because the hip-hop legend abandoned it in much the same way Steve Jobs did. Kanye purchased the home in 2018 to the tune of $2.2 million, but he only stayed there for 2 years, and it fell apart shockingly fast once he abandoned it. Aerial pictures showed the property covered in trash, as well as countless items like drum kits and tricycles that he seemingly left behind in a rush. Now, Kanye's mansion is pretty unique because he didn't just live there, he also used it as a base of operations for his notorious Donda Academy. Oh, and did I mention it's just 8 miles away from Kim Kardashian's home? He moved in shortly after their breakup, which is just creepy in my opinion. The property has some pretty impressive features, like a fireplace that stretches all the way to the ceiling, 4 garages, a spa tub, and for some strange reason, a metal workshop. Even so, the mansion's disturbing backstory made it a tough sell, and it's not surprising that it's still lying vacant. Kanye West is famous for his unpredictable and often irrational personality. Like, buying a multi-million-dollar house only to ditch it is a pretty weird move. But it's not the first time a world-famous musician did something like this. Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch is the most epic celebrity mansion of all. The 2,700-acre estate was more than just a home for the king of pop. It was practically an amusement park with a Ferris wheel, roller coaster, and a petting zoo to boot, although you could only get in if you were part of Jackson's inner circle. Now, he bought the property in 1988 for anywhere from $20 to $30 million, but everything went downhill after he was accused of child abuse. Police officers raided the estate in 2003, and while Jackson was ultimately acquitted of all the charges, the damage was already done. He left the property behind in 2005, but he was in a precarious financial situation, and in 2008, the bank told him he had to pay back over $24 million in loans. Otherwise, they'd auction the property off. That's about as much as he paid when he first purchased it, so the estate had clearly been mismanaged. Ownership of the property was transferred to the Sycamore Valley Ranch Company that same year, and they tried to sell it for $100 million after Jackson died, only to realize that no one wanted to buy the darn thing. The price plummeted to $67 million by 2017, and in 2020, a former friend of the Jackson family, Ron Burkle, bought it for $22 million. It's really surprising that the home of one of the greatest singers of all time couldn't turn a profit. In fact, anyone who invested in it suffered massive financial losses, Jackson included. The last I heard, Burkle was planning a housing development on the land, so he obviously didn't care about the mansion or its place in Michael Jackson's story. He basically just wanted some land to build houses on. So from Michael Jackson's fabled Neverland Ranch to Courtney Love's Country Retreat, these were the abandoned celebrity mansions that couldn't sell for any price.